Yeah. So good morning, everybody. Right? This is the subject that was given to me to study and share the result of my thoughts with you today. Right? It is Martha, Mary, and you. It is based on a passage and an excerpt of the Gospel written by Luke, and that's the chapter 10 and the verses from 38 to 42. Okay? I'm going to be using here what we call a very sophisticated name, but that's the technique that when we analyze biblical text, philosophy, and law. That is called hermeneutics in Portuguese, and exegesis, right? So what is it? Basically, I'm going to be getting the text. I'm going to be breaking the text in minutiae, in words, analyzing the text per se. And then I'm going to be comparing this text with short texts of other passages in which you have Mary and Martha by John. So we're going to be making an analysis between texts. I'm going to be talking about the context, what's going on at that time in terms of background, right? And then we're going to be trying to reach what is called intra-text, which is the silence, what is not there in lines, but it's in between, so that we can grasp the metaphorical, symbolic message. Is that okay? And this is the title that Susanna gave to me, because in the Bible does not come as Mary. I was not in the Bible, and you. But it's a very provocative, because it is inviting us, you and I, to think in this triangle: Mary, Martha, and I, and you, right? And how they play, how they perform, and how should I perform in their very same role, right? Or how much of Martha I have, or how much of Mary I have on my daily life, right? I am extremely Martha-oriented or extremely Mary-oriented. I'm a well-balanced combination of the two or not. So that's why the title is very provocative, right? But as a matter of fact, this is, in a very simple term, it is this: at the home of Martha and Mary. That is what comes at the gospel, okay? Now, this is the text, and we're going to come back to it like 20 times. Okay, I'm going to be highlighting some words so that we can have some comments and bring the context so that we can analyze text and context, and then later on text and text. Okay, and it goes like this: as Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet, listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that she had to be made. She came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her." This passage has brought about lots of discussions, lots of study, lots of controversies, and lots of paintings. Throughout history, this passage has been translated into paintings as well. Okay? So, let's see here now the very same passage. Before going to the passage, this is basically what the first time that we read, we're going to be talking about Mary's attitude or behavior or posture and Martha's, right? Sometimes we're going to be feeling some sympathy for one of them, right? Or we're going to be discussing, how come that Martha talks to Jesus Christ like this, right? Tell her to, or don't you Don't you care that I'm here by myself doing it, etc.? And sometimes we prefer one and prefer the other. And we're going to be having some of hermeneutics and exegesis in a couple of minutes here for you to see. The first stop here, which is exegesis, we're going to see also paintings of these painters throughout the presentation. Now, basically, to get to know it, we are going to be seeing that's the methodology. Whenever we're talking about hermeneutics, we are talking about how to understand a biblical, a philosophical, and a legal text, using comparison, using context, using analogy, and trying to derive from it a message that's not so much clear or evident or apparently there at first sight, right? And whenever you're going to be using this is the methodology, you're going to be seeing grammar, we're going to see words, semantics, morphology, etc. Okay? So let's go there. The first thing that you have to say is, we have to go to the very same passage and look translations from different Bibles to see. Otherwise, we're going to be spending lots of time elaborating from one word when it's going to be very clear when you take another piece of translation. So these in yellow are what we can find in different Bibles, right? So as Jesus and his disciples were on the way, it may appear as now it happened as they went. It may appear as now it came to pass. So we know by this that there was a journey, that Jesus Christ and the disciples, they were moving from point A to point B. Okay? And then sometimes say there was a village or a certain village, and the word preparation, Martha was preparing things because she would be receiving visit, right? Others say tasks instead of preparations. And Jesus sometimes say you were upset in one translation, or you were troubled in another translation, or you were worried. And Mary has chosen what's better in some translation, the best part. So these are the points that are some differences, but they are not substantial differences to say that the interpretation is going to be completely different from one to the other approach. But these are how they appear. Now let's come here now to historical background to understand it. Hospitality was the thing during that time. So much so that even the Hebrew today, the Jewish people, hospitality is the thing. When you have Shabbat, hospitality is the thing. You may even open the door open because you're waiting for somebody that you do not know, a foreigner, that's going to be coming in to share the meal. So that's the environment. Martha is in this framed by this concept of hospitality is a must. We have to serve. Other thing is, Martha and Mary, they were sisters of Lazarus. And Lazarus was one of the dearest friends of Jesus Christ. And there are a couple of passages in the Bible that he visited his house. Lazarus' house, consequently their house. Okay? To take into account. Which, going to the second one, which leads us to conclude that we are not talking about Mary of Magdalene. We're talking about Mary of Bethany, a different city. This is not Mary of Magdalene, right? Magdala. So they lived in a village named Bethany, and this was basically 3 kilometers away from Jerusalem. And there is a reason for me to mention that. We're going to be seeing that later. Jesus and the apostle used to visit Lazarus quite often. Jesus shows special benefitation of love for Lazarus, Martha, and Mary. When we read John, because we are reading now Luke, John chapter 11:5 and John 11, it is textually manifested. It is transcribed. Jesus has a special love for them. Okay, that's very important for us not to get the word of Christ, Martha, Martha, etc., as a rebuke, but it's a very welcome invitation to reflect. Okay. Martha's and Mary's reaction to Lazarus' death are narrated by John, because this happened 1 week after Lazarus was reanimated or resurrected or whatever, revitalized, whatever we may call it. It's exactly 1 month after that Lazarus, and you could see to compare their personalities, because Martha, when she learned that Lazarus was very sick, she sent a message to Jesus Christ saying, you are very close, and we're talking about like 4-6 hour walk. Come to see your dearest friend because he's gonna die. And it took Jesus 2 days to do so, and when he arrived, the guy died between quotes, was there. And her reaction immediately was, how come that it took you 2 days to come here? And there is also her reaction, because she was very religious. She knows Daniel's prophecies in the Bible. She knew that resurrection was possible, and she was demanding that too. Mary, on the other hand, she was crying like crazy, and she was pampered and assisted by all the apostles and friends, because she was completely crashed to death. And Martha's personality was more extrovert, trying to make it happen, right? She's the one that cleaned the house, serving and cooking, etc. Okay? This is just for us to understand, and not to judge a person just by one sentence. Lazarus had been resurrected 1 month before this event that I told you. And Martha has evinced great faith in the scripture, because when you go to Daniel, which is the Bible, not necessarily the First Testament, and when you go to Mark, you're going to see that they narrate her religiosity. She was very religious, believing in the faith. She knew that there is a possibility of being revived. Right? It's not a person that is only down to earth, materialistic. Okay? Now, and on the following week, Jesus was crucified. Right? So in his journey with this apostle from one city to another, from Jericho to Jerusalem, he was already going towards his fatal end. And this happened 1 week before. Okay? In other words, it was the last opportunity for Martha and for Mary to look at him, to contemplate him, and observe his words. Okay? So all they said, for you to understand the passage again, because we're going to be coming back to the passage. So the first part I've already talked. They were on their way, and this happened immediately after the passage that we have on the gospel, which is the Good Samaritan, in which we know how to put in practice service. And immediately we have Martha working like crazy to service. Right? So this is all things together we have to keep in mind to understand the passage. The other thing here is Mary, she sat at the Lord's feet listening. Remember that at that time, meetings, studies of religion, or conversation, philosophical conversation of life, it was only restricted or limited to men. We don't have women participating in conversations, sitting and talking, raising their hand. That's my opinion, right? So this is something to learn also, because Mary was breaking a taboo. She was there. It was not Jesus alone in the home. He had lots of people with him. We don't know how many, right? Minimum, all the apostles and them. But he was followed by many people, right? Which will make Martha crazy about servicing and preparing food for all of those who came, right? But anyway, you have to pay attention that Mary here, she was doing something that was not so much normal. And also, in a situation similar to this, she did something that was not so much quite often. She anointed, she spread perfume on Jesus' feet, and she wiped and dried his feet with her hair. This is really audacious for a woman at the time, right? Could be misinterpreted among the other ones, okay? But anyway, but this for us to know. Nowadays, okay, but for that time. But anyway, I'm just pinpointing attitudes, behavior that are playing here in our interpretation, right? So let's move down here. Now, Martha was distracted by all the preparations or tasks or duties. The word distracted is common in all translation, but if you go to Greek, which is pariestatos, it means being pulled and dragged all the ways. So she was really hectic, going to one place to another to make it happen, right? Because sometimes you may say, oh, distracted, light-headed, absent-minded, or not so much paying attention. No, she was really being pulled and dragged all the directions. So the Greek word gives us better than the translations, right? The other thing here for us is Martha. She came to him and asked, another violation, because women were not allowed or expected to break into conversation and interrupt. She came and asked. In the way that she asked, she says, don't you care? She's questioning Jesus, right? In a way she's saying, pay attention. There is something wrong here, right? I'm the slave here, and that I was just contemplating looking at you. Very typical behavior among sisters, among brothers and sisters, when you say, Dad, right? So-and-so is not making the bed, right? Because you're just accusing, right? But that's a very childish behavior in adulthood, right? Don't you care that my sister has left me, which is abandoned me, right? By myself. So, in other words, she is interrupting Jesus' teaching and brought the light upon her. Okay, as sometimes we do to say, we are the very first person of the universe. Pay attention to me. Right? But this is common, it's human behavior. Right? That's what you do. And tell her to help me. So she didn't tell Mary. She asked his intervention. Father, Mom, Dad, ask her too. So she didn't solve it by herself, saying, come on, Mary, it's time to work, right? Okay? No more listening or hearing or whatever. Come to help me. Now, she asked Jesus to do something, right? And whenever Jesus repeats, like, truly, truly, verily, verily, Peter, Peter, do you love me? Amen, amen. Something strong comes. This is Martha, Martha. This is typical, this is psychoanalysis of Jesus' speech. Whenever we have this, pay attention, right? This is what we say, for example, in my home, they didn't repeat my name, but my mother just talked to me with my full name. Right? So if full name is heard, something's come, right? So here, Jesus were like subtle. Truly, truly, verily, verily, amen, amen. Peter, Peter, Martha, Martha. Okay? And then he describes what he sees. You are worried and upset about many things. Right? Remember that this is the last time that he is talking to them. The last opportunity to learn from him, right? But she has a duty, an obligation, as we have in life, right? We have to provide for, we have to get it, we have to buy it, we have to meet expectations, right? The very same thing here, getting different proportions. But in our daily life, we are dragged and pulled in all directions, right? And then he says, but indeed, only one thing is needed. And he's going to be saying that Mary understood it. What is better, or the better part of it, and because she understood it, this thing that she got it will not take away from her. Right? And then we have here a whole clash of outer world and inner world. Outer journey and inner journey. Right? Dedication of time, energy to what is fleeting, passing, temporary, that's gonna end, and dedication to what is perennial, permanent, endless. And we as a human being, we live in this tension. Right? If you're a tug war, we're like this, right? And the magic of it is try to say where again I'm gonna get the middle of it, or the balance of it. Okay? Now, so these are the whole thing that we have covered. So I'm just talking about the text and bring some context here for you. Whew. I didn't translate the other part because I did in Portuguese, didn't translate. So this is Martha. I talked to a couple of people in my office, valet parking, and friends, for them to judge, to see what kind of adjectives they talked about Martha, Mary, right? And I just listed, I didn't edit, right? Some of them said that Martha is worried, concerned, agitated, disturbed, super active, this is in Portuguese, was left hectic, hyperactive, upset, indignant, incensant, irritated, inquiring, plaintive because she was complaining, and resentful because she was doing by herself everything. The other one was just there resting, all right? And also, as far as she talks to Jesus, very authoritative, right? Imperative. Tell her, right? Not even please, or would you mind telling? You just tell. Remember at that time things were tougher, right? We are not so much sophisticated in language, just straightforward to the point, right? Which has to do with the style of life as well. And she was really task-oriented. What was important at that moment was to serve people, to do things to happen, because they were hungry, had to be hospitable, etc., etc. Mary, I've heard peaceful, tranquil, calm, quiet, comfortable, focused, active listener, confident, contemplative, thoughtful, introspective, and people-oriented. But there are some negative things about her that I heard later that I put here in this slide as well. Right? Jesus, they said he was sincere, he was tranquil, calm, because he didn't shout or scream at Martha. He was assertive, saying, there is one thing that is needed. You are not getting it. Right? Clarifying, because he said there are many things that you're paying attention to, but there is only one, so pay attention, giving you hints how to see life, enlightening. Empathetic, because he was not immediately scolding her, but saying, Martha, Martha, right? Understanding, patient, discerning, he knows what is the time or what is the essence of the moment. A very tender master. But some said that, and this applies sometimes to Mary, and to abusive, lazy, idle, careless, intrusive like Martha. How come that you're just interrupt conversation, right? Gate crasher. It doesn't pay attention. Was not invited to the conversation. Just go there, right? Daring. How you dare to do so? Very audacious, right? And impertinent, because that was not appropriate time to do that. Okay. Now, let's go to the two interpretations here now. Things that we have to know, first of all, when interpreting everything that is in the gospel, there is a reason for being there. There is a purpose to being there. We cannot just skip lightly saying, you know what, I didn't understand, now let's go ahead. As if you're just reading a book in a sitting area before being attended by a dentist. Or at the airport waiting for the airplane. At the waiting room. So whenever we open the gospel, we have to dedicate time, energy, thought, and feelings to understand, because whatever is there has a meaning. Otherwise, time would have erased it off. Right? So there is a purpose. The other thing is, remember that everything that has been placed in our life is a pedagogical tool. It's an opportunity of learning. Maybe a person, a situation, a difficulty, a visit, whatever is happening in our life has a pedagogical purpose. So what is happening in Jesus' life together with Mary, in Jesus' life together with Martha, there is a meaning for that. What are they learning here? In what stage of evolution are they? Right? How much acute are they hearing and listening and connecting to the divine? In what stage are we here, right? That's why it's Martha, Mary, and we, and you, in case of the, right? All contains a moral lessons. Whatever you read in the Bible, you have to derive or there must be a takeaway. It's not only repeating the story. Okay, and if it's there, what do you learn from that? How does it apply to our life? how would we identify ourselves with one of the characters, right? And this is the very sentence that I start with, the slide that everything that is in our existence is like educational material. Haroldo Dutra has a speech about educational material in our life, in which he says that as the same way that when you go to school you have all the notebook and the book and the ruler, etc., etc., we have to look at our life saying, what is this and what is meant for, because that's a learning process. All right? Now, the ideal thing is not to be in favor of or against some of them. The idea is how to combine Martha's hands. They are very operational. She makes it happen. She's a doer. Right? At the time that Lazarus was about to die, she was the one that said, go for Christ and bring it here. Right? And how we can have Mary's heart in the sense of connecting to the highest spirituality, or have the discerning moment saying, this is a moment in my life that I have to stop. I have to say no to the outer world, what's pulling me all parts, because I have to reconnect here. I should say that Martha is like breathing out, and Mary is like breathing in. If you just breathe out, you're going to be out of breath, because everything's already exhaled. You're going to be really worn, tired up, worn out, and you're going to be falling apart. So there must be a time, be it daily, as St. Augustine says, recapping today, weekly, reading the gospel at home, or coming here for study, or attending a lecture. But there must be a time for us to fill up the gas. We have to breathe in. Otherwise, we're going to be out of breath. Okay? So basically, it is the combination of heart and hands that's going to be taking us to the right place. Right? In other words, how we combine worshiping and serving. We cannot only worship God. We have to serve. That's why it comes after the Good Samaritan. Because that's the combination of serving and doing what we learned. We cannot only stock in memory what we learned by taking the course or coming here, listen to lecture, but we have to also do. So that's the combination. In other words, if you have to put in a very short sentence, it is not an either or preposition. It is and. It's not I have to be either this or that. Whatever you take as in isolation is going to be taking you and taking us to the wrong path. It's like a detour. It's going to be taking lots of time to come back and resume our ascending journey. Remember that we are in this process of ascending. It's vertical. Whenever you get a detour, you're going to be horizontally. You're going to be shifting, and you have to come back again. Be it redoing, repairing, or diagonally trying to get more proofs and see if we have learned or not. Okay? What is called, in other words, is whenever you come horizontally to the very same place, we are doing expiation. Whenever you're coming back but you're still going up, you're not repaving, redoing, restarting anything, you're just going trying to go up, metaphorically speaking, graphically speaking. Right? If you like to put a graph, you say if you're coming back horizontally to the way, or you're just going diagonally. Okay? With the heart, like Mary, we can listen to Jesus' orientation, pay attention to all teachings that come from the superior spirituality. That's the time that we have to meditate, that we have to reflect. They have to, as Andrea said, thinking about my life, so she's reflecting now, right? Once you start reflecting, devil upon you, you have already moved. You are no longer stagnant. You are no longer the water they are mentioning. Yeah, right? And the hands that are laborious, industrious, and operating is like Martha, that make it happen. What is expected and hoped by the spirituality? So she's not doing anything wrong, If you're talking about wrong or not doing right, is go to one extreme and abandon the other. That's why it is not either or. Okay? And the sense of priority, because sometimes Martha is in the sense of urgency. It is very responsive, right? But priority does not go along with urgency. Priority, by definition, is dedicating time to think, to feel, so that you can elect. So exercising our free will on the urgent mode, chances are that we're going to be making the wrong choice. We're going to be, in a way, delaying our spiritual process, right? The ideal thing would be that since the importance of all the teaching of the gospel with the children and teenagers, because most of our generation, we started dedicating time, energy, thought to the inner side of us in connecting. We were already adult, or reaching 50 or 55 or 60 years old, right? The ideal is, from the very beginning, to understand this duality, this tension, and recognize that we have to do the two things. And not because of making wrong choices, doing the wrong choosing here, we are going to be deterred and say, oh, you know what? After this occurrence, I have to stop in doing it. So we don't need to go this way. We can do it proactively. Right? That's the importance of all this teaching and learning in the children's stage and teenager stage. This already mentioned that God teaches us through people, situations, and happenings. Mary has to learn from Martha, and Martha has to learn from Mary, because both are going to the extreme here, right? And we know that in Spiritism we have the principles of interdependence, of cooperation, of co-creation. It's a collaborative approach. So that's why we have to combine both. Sometimes I can see in her more contemplation, more meditation, more time to get more involved. I say, oh, I'm going to be learning with her. All right? How you find time to do so. Or friendship, or your lover, your partner, your husband, wife saying, I think it's time to stop because you're really, really getting to a point of exhaustion. And it's going to be taking you nowhere. Right? That's the importance of listening to feedback and let's do a welcoming feedback, as Jesus said, Martha, Martha. He didn't say, oh, you're stupid. Don't you see it? Right? Oh, loser. not this language, right? It is a very comforting, welcoming, inviting way, right? So they are here, symbolically speaking, like representation of our evolving of consciousness here, right? We should learn to prioritize, identify what is essential to achieve our inner peace, right? Nothing can take it away from us. That's the only thing. The kingdom of God, our inner peace, once we get, it's not going to be stolen. It's not going to be taken by anybody, right? And Jesus, he's our model because he did it. Not only he taught it, he did it, right? I don't know if this book is in English, but I couldn't find.
Not yet.
Not yet. But get this book, chapter 3, in which you have the dialogue of Jesus Christ with one of the priests, high priest, right? And you're gonna see that the priest is questioning him, what are you doing here? Right? Are you building a kingdom of God? Do you know any prince? Who are your fellows, your friends? Do you know Athens? Do you know Rome? This is all the outside world, the powerful one. And he was just answering that it was going to be made by love, feelings. He doesn't need any special tool or resource. It's just good willing, right choice. And there is a question here that is very nice, because the guy asked him, did you know Rome and Athens? And his answer was very simple. No, I know love and truth. Mm-hmm. I thought of Susanna because she's preparing something for October about power.
She's doing it today.
Doing, yeah.
In Atlanta.
Okay. Because this is the best thing to say what is power. If I have love and truth, I don't need to know Rome. I don't need to know New York, Moscow, or whatever. Right? I just have goodwill, good choice, in connectivity with the divine. So I have peace inside. I have the kingdom of God inside of me. I may walk under or over or in troubled water. Right? So he taught and lived. So that's a very good thing. So get this one here because it's very inspiring here. And how to recognize the moment that we have to stop. We cannot go on stumbling on problems to recognize. When you have bankruptcy, when you have a disease, when you have a separation, when you have a tragedy. Why do we need to have this occurrence to understand that it is a continuous and continually conversation with God? It's not a desperate conversation, sometimes not even conversation, because we're so much polluted with our hearing and our ear, so much addicted to the outer world that we cannot listen to or hear, right? So we have to learn to discern what is passing. I already told you that. And also here in this very rudimentary scenario, who is nourishing physically and who is nourishing himself or herself spiritually? So you have Mary and Martha. What kind of food is that? Is it spiritual food from one side? Is it material food for the other side? Okay? There is a tension of this nourishing process here. Nutrition process here. What actually stays with us? That's the big question. All right? What stays with us? What has been built within us? Everything that was built out of us, this is going to be destroyed. This is going to disappear. We know that. Even our body, right? Physically. So that's the question that we have to be teaching or making children or leading children to understand what they are doing for themselves, to themselves, and contribution to the other selves as well. The truest, the most true, the truest work is the one that it carries out us. The discarnation reveals us from inside. Because when we died physically, it is the inside that talks. No longer my body that talks. It's my soul or my spirit that talks. Right? So this is the revelation, the importance of renewing ourselves and renovating ourselves here. Right? This is a sentence from, I love it, because I've seen in one YouTube once, and I remember that I jotted it down and I reused it here. This is Haroldo Dutra. He says, all external edification has an end. Everything on earth is ephemeral. Be it the very church, or the church of Antioch, or the church of Leon, Judah, the Hebrew temples, or any other historical temples, entire ancient civilization, and so on. Everything passes. And how difficult it is for us. Have a look at the situation that we have gone through. How many things disappear from supermarket without people thinking there will be other people coming for the very same supermarket to get? How many people has a huge stock of storage at home? Because all water should be mine, all torchlight should be mine, everything should be mine, because we are still driven by the outer world. All right? And everything passes here. So it's time to restore our relationship between creator and creature. Right? I love this picture here because you're touching here. Okay? This is just the translation that was there. And I'm about to finish. We must have the time to meditate, to hold our interior conversation with the divine, to commune with God, what we are running towards to. This is my father and my mother's sentence. Whenever we're very hectic, I say, what are you looking for? What are you searching for? What are you running towards to? And you want to say, what are you escaping from? What are you feeling from? What are you running from? There are two movements in life. Either we are searching for something like crazy, or you are escaping for something. So stop. There is no need to go this way. This was typical my father and my mother sentence that I reproduced here. It's nothing to do with the gospel. I just put it here because it's something that I have in my mind since I was a child here. Right? Because there is too much stress, too much running about, too much hyperactivity, too much emotional burden. Right? And there is a sentence also in another video by Haroldo that he says, both the martyr and the angel, they manage the very amount of time, 24 hours. Don't think that by doing more, you're going to be having more time. The two intentions here, they have the same amount of time. What is important is what you do with your time, not how much you can do. It's what you do and how you do with your time, right? So, how are we establishing, it's mistaken typo, our priority? That's something to think of the weekend. What has been our cornerstone as being more spiritual? What is the main column of my life? What is the central point of it that I have to take care of it, not detach from it, right? And we know that the very greatest human examples were provided by people that were connected to the divinity. The people that inspired us, they were connected. They were not disconnected. They were not saying things that are didn't make sense, or provoking, or attacking, or dangling without context. They were very connected. Okay? There's the St. Augustine that I mentioned to you. We start in a very simple way. And when we start talking, continue with Jesus, that I already said, because sometimes I think, if I'm not talking, am I expecting Jesus to appear to me to talk? Like an ostensive apparition? Like a miracle to start talking? This is not going to happen. It may happen, but I'm not the one privileged with the virgins that appear. Let's do it more simple, right? More humbly. Don't have to have a Hollywoodian drama to start talking to Jesus, right? We read talking about being the pedagogical meaning, because sometimes that's the question that I pose to myself. Am I still offering to this pedagogical tool what happening to my life with the people? I'm still offering rebellious resistance, not to accept, not to embrace them, not to welcome. I'm still thinking that it's going to be my way or not. Because this is something that we are sometimes in a dead end, right? When we will eventually learn to quiet our mind, because our mind has this monologue that is all the time torturing us. Let's make it peaceful, quiet, tranquil. Otherwise, we cannot hear God's voice, right? Basically, the great message here is when Pontius Pilate, he said, "Tell me the truth." Jesus didn't say anything, because he was the truth. His life was the truth. You don't have to say. Just look, observe, feel. So when we are really integral, we are not broken apart. We talk by our attitudes. We don't need words to interpret our attitudes. We don't need a title to give legitimacy to our authority. We just say, do, we have, feel, and people are contagiously and gracefully and also thankfully following us. Right? That's the great message. Let's try to get our inner silence. Right? And a very good moment for that is when we have the passes as well. Thank you so much.